The most dangerous moment in Dwayne Johnson's life wasn't when he was broke. It wasn't when he had $7 to his name. It wasn't when doors closed. And it wasn't when nobody believed in him. It was the moment he realized the future he had been raised for no longer existed. Because when the plan dies, identity goes with it. And rebuilding money is hard. But rebuilding identity, that's where people disappear. Dwayne Johnson didn't grow up imagining different paths. He grew up inside certainty. His father, Rocky Johnson, was a professional wrestler. His grandfather wrestled too. Strength, toughness, performance. These weren't lessons taught. They were the air he breathed. You didn't ask if you were strong. You proved it. But wrestling wasn't the dream. Football was. Football was order. Football was structure. Football was validation. It wasn't a passion project or a fallback. It was the plan. The one future that made sense. Everything, training, discipline, identity, was aligned around that outcome. Johnson earned a full scholarship to the University of Miami, one of the most competitive football programs in the world. He wasn't just playing football. He was surrounded by elite talent, men who would become NFL stars. That environment matters, because when you're immersed in greatness, you don't imagine failure. You assume survival is inevitable. You believe effort guarantees outcome. You believe if you work hard enough, the world will meet you halfway. Football teaches a brutal lesson instead. Hard work does not guarantee survival, and when Johnson didn't make the NFL, the loss wasn't just professional, it was personal. The plan didn't just fail, it vanished.
I leave home like you guys left home. I'm ready to tackle the world, get after it, achieve my dreams and goals. Crushed by 22, 23 years old. Now I gotta move back in with my mom and dad.
Johnson tried to keep the dream alive. After college, he joined the Canadian Football League. For a moment, it felt like the plan was still breathing, fragile, but alive. Then it ended. He was cut. No warning, no gradual decline, no ceremony, just removal. He went home with $7 in his pocket. 7. That number matters not because it's dramatic, but because it represents how completely everything collapsed. There was no cushion, no backup identity, no alternative future waiting patiently. And the real damage wasn't financial, it was psychological. Because when everything you trained for disappears, confidence doesn't slowly fade, it collapses. This is the space people don't talk about. Not pain, but uncertainty. When you wake up without direction, when your past no longer explains your future, when the question, "Who am I?" has no answer. This is where depression lives. Not always in suffering, but in silence.
I played for University of Miami, played for great teams. Warren Sapp, Ray Lewis, they were my teammates. They were balling. Warren Sapp was playing tight end that time. I was starting defensive tackle. Yeah, they moved him over to D-line. And he looked at me, he's like, "Yo, dude, I'm gonna take your spot." I said, "You ain't taking my spot." He said, "I'm gonna take your spot." I said, "No, you ain't." We battled, and he took my spot.
From the outside, wrestling looks like the comeback. It wasn't. When Johnson entered WWE, he wasn't The Rock. He was Rocky Maivia, smiling, respectful, polished. A character designed to be safe, to honor the family name, to be liked. The crowd rejected him instantly, booed him, mocked him, humiliated him. Live on television, night after night. Here's what most people miss. This failure hurt more than football, because football rejection happens quietly. Wrestling rejection happens publicly. Millions of people watching you try and telling you you're fake. You don't belong. You're not authentic. We don't believe you. That kind of rejection doesn't just challenge skill, it challenges identity. And at this moment, Johnson faced a decision most people avoid. He could keep asking for approval, or he could stop asking entirely.
It was a hard adjustment going from professional wrestling, obviously, because professional wrestling, as you know, is like was always like my theater.
This is where The Rock is born. Not discovered, not handed to him. Built deliberately. Johnson leaned into what people criticized. The arrogance, the confidence, the sharpness. He stopped trying to be polite, stopped trying to be safe, stopped trying to earn permission. The Rock wasn't a personality. It was a tool. A sharpened version of himself designed to command attention instead of requesting it. The humor became confrontational, the confidence became unapologetic, the presence became impossible to ignore, and something shifted. The boos changed tone, crowds leaned in, momentum returned, not because he softened, but because he owned himself. This wasn't luck, it was self-awareness weaponized. He didn't ask, "Who do they want me to be?" He asked, "Who am I when I stop hiding?"
I gotta give him that much. Yeah, the character of The Rock refers to himself in the third person, very arrogant and over the edge in terms of a lot of things actually on the show. So
Success arrived quickly after that. Titles, fame, money. And this is where most stories stop. But this is where another danger appeared. Success can be more dangerous than failure, because failure forces change. Success encourages comfort. Johnson could have stayed exactly where he was. He was one of the biggest stars in wrestling history. He had security, recognition, and dominance. Instead, he jumped again into Hollywood.
And then when I first got to Hollywood 14 years ago, it was the first movie, the project that I brought up to the executives. And at that time, I didn't have the juice, I didn't have the clout, so it didn't get made. And then years later, here I'm sitting with you.
Hollywood didn't reject him, it boxed him. Early roles were safe, predictable, profitable. He was cast for size, strength, intimidation, not range, not depth, not longevity. Money came fast, growth stalled. Johnson realized something critical. If he stayed comfortable, this version of success would become permanent. He would be rich and creatively trapped. This is the move most people never make. He walked away from safety. He accepted smaller roles, took risks, failed publicly again. He allowed himself to look inexperienced, to relearn, to be bad at something new, because short-term money is common. Long-term control is rare.
You know, this franchise is a challenge, right? So it's fun, but it's also a really heavy-duty challenge because there's an 8 at the end of the title. So, Chris has been in more than I have, but the challenge is you got to make it better. You got to hopefully try and make it bigger, cooler.
Johnson didn't just reinvent himself once, he built a system for reinvention. He studied business, learned production, understood branding, equity, leverage. He stopped chasing roles and started creating them. Production companies, brand ownership, distribution power. He wasn't just an actor anymore, he was infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't beg for opportunity, it generates it.
What helps me is to keep the hard times in the front of my mind because it allows me to go into these big moments that I've worked my ass off and you guys have worked your ass off. It allows me to go into these big moments with a different perspective.
The Rock didn't win because he never failed. He won because he never clung. He didn't cling to plans that died. He didn't cling to identities that stopped working. He didn't cling to comfort when growth demanded risk. Most people lose not because they fail, but because they refuse to let go of who they used to be. Dwayne Johnson didn't become inevitable through motivation. He became inevitable through strategy. And the moment the plan dies isn't the end of your story. It's the moment you finally get the chance to rebuild it on your terms.